Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Financial Advisors Workshop. This is the show where we interview top financial advisors all across America. Today, we're in good old Colorado, the High Plains. And we have a great lady named Raquel Hinman. And Raquel is with us. She's the owner and founder of Hinman Financial Planning. And I guess it's a suburb of Denver or a suburb of Boulder, Erie, Colorado. Raquel, welcome to the Financial Advisors Workshop.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Excellent. So glad you could join us. Um, Raquel, you have your own firm and
hmm
you're a fee-only financial planner and also investment advisor firm. You help clients manage financial issues, but also some focus on non-financial issues, which is also important. So could you tell us a little bit about your background to begin with? And then let's
Sure.
talk about how you pivoted into this business.
hmm So it's funny because I've actually always worked in this industry. I
Mhm.
graduated from University of Colorado at Boulder with a degree in finance back in, gosh, what was it, 1993.
Great.
And my first job out of college was working for a service center for Merrill Lynch, and kind of came up through that environment. Worked at a few different places. Eventually, got my CFP in 1998, and that sort of launched my career into the advisory side. But I've always worked for investment advisor firms. I worked for advisors, and I worked a little bit on the sort of the back office side too for a while, but I ended up truly going into a financial planning role. I think it was around 1996 or so. And then I launched my firm. It's been about 10 years. It was January of
10
2015, I
years.
think. Yeah.
Great. So how did you launch your firm? What did you do to launch?
I was one of not the original members of the XY Planning Network, but I think I was in that first group right after that. So that was an instrumental group in helping me. I had been working for a firm for, gosh, I think it was about 7 years, and it finally had just decided it was time for me to go and do my own thing. And I was starting to research how to do that, and what planning software would I use, and what custodian would I use, and all those sorts of things. And then I found Alan and Michael, and they were just starting XYPN. And it was great because it gave me this platform to get started. So
Okay.
that helped me a lot. Mm-hmm.
So what was XYPN focused on as you were there?
Yeah. So initially, their big focus was just on helping advisors start financial planning firms,
Okay.
fee only RIAs. And, their big thing was that you could start a firm for, I think it was $10,000 a year back in the day. And you could have clients and you could sort of serve younger people for very low fees. And, the message and I guess the purpose of XY has changed a little bit over the years, and they've gone a little bit more upscale, but that was the original platform that we started with.
So they got you started in a structure that worked for you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I had been an advisor, at that point I had already had, I mean, my CFP, I got my CFP back in 1998. So I was an experienced advisor, and I had come out of the wealth management industry. The firm I worked for before I started my firm specialized in inheritors. So I was pretty used to working with wealthy clients. I had good networks in place already. I didn't bring any clients with me. I started from scratch, but
Wow.
I wasn't just somebody like right out of college starting a firm.
Mhm. Nice. Well, good. So you developed
Yeah.
clients. How did you get
Mhm.
clients?
Oh, initially it was a whole bunch of different things. I mean, like I said, I had good networks already. So I would get some clients, just other advisors, if they were focusing on larger clients, would send some smaller prospects my way. A ton of people found me just through the internet and through Feel Network, NAFA, all those kinds of sources. Um, I had kids who were pretty active in the community. So just, being out and about in the community, a lot of people knew me, knew what I did. So it kind of came from all over. And I didn't really have to focus too much on marketing. I got lucky that way that people just found me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and then you mentioned to me earlier that you started focusing on people working in major life transitions,
hmm
money, going through a
hmm
divorce. Let's talk about that. That's not like
Yeah.
regular planning. That's like kind of comprehensive. We got a project here, right?
Right. 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 Yeah. So, initially when I started my firm, I was trying to focus on people who were like me. So sort of Gen Xers working in that kind of thing. But I think it was about 4 or 5 years after I started my firm, I went through my own divorce. And just
Mm.
going through that experience, obviously gives you a passion for that kind of work. And, I've always really enjoyed working with people who have some money but are very scared of it. They're afraid, don't really understand what it means to them. I loved working with inheritors because I felt like sometimes they were in that situation. They had been given this money, but sometimes they felt guilty about it, didn't really understand it, didn't understand their boundaries. So it's kind of the same thing with working with people with divorce. And it's just something that I truly enjoy. I feel like I can make a difference in their lives. And I always say that's one of the big reasons why I got into financial planning, was just to help people with their money issues and help people feel better about their money and empowered, that kind of stuff.
That's great. So a lot of financial advisors really focus, pretty much on the numbers and
Mm-hmm.
but it sounds like you have a much more kind of a broader based approach.
Yeah.
You're treasurer and board member of Mental Health Partners. That certainly isn't financial.
Yeah, I used to be. I'm actually term limited, so I'm off that group right now. But I went all the way through being chairman of that group. And again, it's sort of this idea of like mental health. And a big part of my practice is focused on, we talked about it before, the call to art and science of financial planning. So many advisors out there are really focused on the numbers. And unfortunately, with clients, sometimes I think that we lose sight of like what's really important to them. And while the numbers are important, the numbers only tell part of the story. So just making sure that we really understand, like, what's the client really want? And, I use the example of estate planning. Sometimes clients will spend, tens of thousands of dollars doing a really complicated estate plan. And it does all this great stuff in terms of trying to reduce taxes. But at the end of the day, if the client just wanted something simple and they're, I just want to give money to my kids and the causes I care about, was doing all of that work really the most important thing? A simple example of it is, do you pay off the house or do you save that money? And the numbers will say one thing, but then I talk about with my clients, what's your sleep at night factor? What's going to help you sleep at night? Because sometimes the best thing financially may not be the best thing for you. And I think that's something that a lot of advisors don't really think about.
Yeah. Well, and with all those transitions and all the things that you really need to kind of look at it a little bit more than just numbers. But
Yeah.
what kind of challenges have you been able to help folks with? Like, let's talk a little about some of those challenges. Like, what are they dealing with?
Yeah. So when people are just coming out of divorce or they've lost a loved one, obviously it's the big, what does my life mean now? So, how is, just from the number standpoint, is how is their income going to change? How are the expenses going to change? But I think it's also an opportunity to say, like, hey, with this new path that you've just been thrown onto, where do you want to go? Like, and there's always this crisis point. So you have to get clients through the crisis and through the immediate steps, if you will, or the immediate danger. But then once they're feeling a little bit more secure, then it's like, well, let's start dreaming a little bit and let's talk about, where do you want your life to go now? Everything's changed for you. So do you want to stay on the same path or do you want to try something different? But in terms of my clients, I have one client who, after her husband died, she decided to stay in her house, but she underwent I think it was about a $400,000 remodel. And this was the very beginning of my firm. And I remember talking to her afterwards and she said, I never would have done this without you. And the fact that you gave me permission to do this and that I know I'm going to be okay financially. She's like, my home is my security place. It's just my sanctuary. And she's so grateful for that. Other clients, here in Colorado, having a ski house is a big thing, or a vacation home. And I've helped several clients with that. But they, again, it's the same thing. Like, you helped me figure out whether I could do this thing that I've always wanted to do, never knew if I could. And it feels really good.
Yeah, it's great. So you're doing good and you're accomplishing a lot at the same time, which is really great.
Yeah.
Good. So tell everybody a little bit about how you actually run the practice. Once you've kind of dealt with these big issues, do you manage money or do you have managers? How do you organize?
Yeah, I do. I do manage portfolios. I manage money for clients, and I keep things pretty simple. I use DFA. I use Vanguard in my portfolios. My clients are usually fairly simple. They have money, but they're not into big complex business deals or things like that. So I don't include a lot of alternative assets. I'm not in crypto or things like that. It's really trying to keep things very simple, easy to understand for my clients. I don't overwhelm them or cause a lot of anxiety.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah. 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 I used to use outside portfolio management, but I actually brought all that in-house in the last year. I hired a full-time employee. I have one full-time and one part-time employee. And so I brought all that back in-house. I got Advison last year, which I can't say enough. They are an amazing software company, and it's been great to work with them. And it's made it a lot easier to handle all that in-house now.
So what does Advison do for you?
So Advison, they have CRM, they have portfolio management, rebalancing, they do performance reporting. They can kind of do it all, and it's been great. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, that's great. So you've seen some changes. You've been in the industry a while.
Mhm.
Now you're 10 years running your own show. We just went through this terrible pandemic period, and it's changed a lot of things.
Yeah.
What do you see there? Like, have you done different things now because of that period that we went through?
Oh, boy, that's a good question. There were so many things changing anyway. For me, I feel like it's hard to separate pandemic versus not. I guess the one really easy answer to that is I work from home probably 90% of the time now. You can see right now like I said, business casual Friday, but I work from home probably 90% of the time. I do have an office in downtown. It's about a mile and a half, but I go to my office just for client meetings when clients want to meet in person. And I would say a number of my clients are, I have clients now I've never met, which is just great. I have some clients who want to meet in person maybe once a year, but otherwise we do all of our meetings virtually. So that's been really nice. I was trying to work towards that anyway, to more of a virtual practice, and COVID just made it so that I could easily do that. Beyond that, I just felt like the years of COVID, people were so focused on survival that people couldn't really go to that place of doing the fun planning work or really trying to think about what's important in my life and what are my values. They were just focused on like getting through, making sure they had enough money, whatever. So I feel like in the last year or two, really a big part of my practice and focus has been just really connecting with clients again. So I've been and doing it more socially. So I've been doing a lot more lunches and breakfast again, which I hadn't done in a long time. I've gone on hikes with clients, just things like that, trying to connect on a much more personal level again. And that's felt
Sure.
really good. Yeah.
And they like that, right? And besides,
Yeah. They're
good for the
loving it.
soul, right? It's good for the soul.
Mhm. They're
Yeah.
loving it. Yeah, I guess one other thing I've recently started doing is more video reviews. So
Mm.
rather than writing a long email to client, because that is one thing I have gotten so tired of spending hours and hours drafting good email responses to clients, and I don't talk to clients a lot on the phone. So I have been using more video, and just when a client calls me with something, or even if I want to do a portfolio review, I'll start out by doing a video review of their portfolio, send it to the client, and then say, well, if you want to meet, let me know. And that's just been met with wildly positive response.
Mhm. Wow.
Yeah.
So you say wildly, they're
Mhm.
really excited about it. Well, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
How does that work in your advantage?
Well, number one, it's cutting down on client meetings. It's saving me time because, again, instead of spending an hour or two drafting a really complicated email or having a client come in for a meeting, I can just walk them through, and I can, pull up my financial planning software and say, I had one client that we were looking at some different mortgage options, and I ran the scenarios in the software, and then I record a video saying, well, if you do this, this is how it would look. If you do this, this is how it would look. Which of these, here's what I think might be a good idea for you. What do you think? And she loved it because she said, I can go back and watch it. If I didn't understand it, I could ask a question, things like that. It's just been so great for things like that. So I feel like it's leveraging my time. It's leveraging my practice. It's saving me time. It's better for clients. They're rough videos. They are not edited. They are not perfect, but I think it makes me look more human. So that's okay too.
Yeah, that's just
Yeah.
just you talking, right?
Hmm.
That's great. So what kind of strategies do you employ when people are going through all those big transitions? Like, are there certain ways that you kind of try to move people in different directions, financial planning wise?
I try really hard to help show them options. So if they're facing something, what are you thinking about? What are the choices? They always say in behavioral finance, one of the best ways to get a client to act is to have it be their idea. So try to help them explore their ideas and their options, and I think that's a really hard thing, is the more experience you get as an advisor, the more you feel like you have the answers. And that's something
Right.
I've really struggled with in the last year, is to say, you know what, I don't have all the answers. I need to maybe guide clients, help them. But at the end of the day, they need to come up with the answers. And so going back to that beginner mindset has been something I've really been working on in the last year or two.
Nice. So how do you keep yourself fresh with all the ideas that are out there? I mean, this is complicated stuff.
Yeah.
Finding for answers. How do you supply them if you can?
Yeah. I would say there's so much information overload out there right now. And so much so, a big part of it, I think, is turning off the noise. And I recommend that for both me and my clients. I have one client who has a tremendous amount of anxiety, and she used to listen to different podcasts and videos. And I kept encouraging her to say, here's a couple of really good sources, but other than that, turn it off, because it's just making things worse for you. And I do the same thing. There's so much out there. And so it's find a couple of sources that you really like, that you really connect with. And beyond that, turn it off. I do send a newsletter to clients. I'm trying to do a little bit more of blogging and video blogging, because if you can provide education in those formats, then you don't necessarily have to do it in your meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So it sounds like you have really a great program going. It's pretty exciting.
I try. Changing all the time.
So you do a lot of referral marketing then as well, like, and you ask folks for referrals, or you just suggest that they talk to you. You talk to their friends.
Yeah, I will say I don't push a lot of that. Again, I've been pretty lucky that people will just call me or contact me. If somebody ever refers someone to me, I will always talk to that person. If they're not a good fit for me, some reason, I try my best to send them somewhere where they can get it. So I always want to give people a good experience, no matter what, whether they're qualified to work with me or not. But I do get a fair number of referrals. I do do have a good network of attorneys and CPAs that I work with, that I refer out to, and they give referrals back sometimes. But I think it's a lot of it is good old fashioned networking. So
Yeah. No, that's right. Good old fashioned networking. I know a big aspect of financial planning is trying to keep people from going through the volatility of bad markets. Like, a good example is 2022, which was the worst investing year of the last 40 years for sure. How do you manage that? Like, when things are really rough, are you getting partially out of markets or trying to just avoid risk? How do you handle that?
Yeah. So I am one of those advisors that, for the most part, says we need to just stay invested, right? You have your risk tolerance, we have your goals. Unless something has changed in your situation, we're staying put. So I really try to do that. And I think, especially, one of the things that's been concerning to me is I feel like we've had some pretty big market downturns, but they've been pretty quick. And so I think one of the things that was really stressful for me over the last several years was that we hadn't had a long sustained downturn. And it's one thing for clients to have to muddle through for a year, but when it goes out 2 years or so, and I felt like we'd kind of gotten to that point, and about the middle of last year, I was getting very frustrated with the markets. And so finally we started to see some upturns. But for me, I think a lot of my clients have a tendency to just bury their head in the sand and not look. And so one of the things I try to do is at least reach out to them, communicate more than normal, talk to my clients about portfolios, because a lot of times the performance really isn't as bad as what they think. They're hearing all this horrible stuff in the markets about, oh, the markets are down 50% or whatever it is. And their portfolios usually aren't down that much, because we have diversified portfolios. So but just trying to talk to them about it, talk them through it. It's really important.
Nice. Well, it sounds like you really have some great things going in your firm.
Thank you.
Are there some things that you think that really set your firm apart from other firms?
It's interesting, because I think it's really hard to have a truly unique firm these days. For me, I think one of the big things is that I really truly care about my clients. So I don't necessarily try to become friends with my clients. I think that can be a little bit dangerous, but I do care about them, and I do care about their success. And I do care about, are we doing everything we can to help them find that success? And to the point that I've even had attorneys and CPAs before say, Raquel, you've got to be careful. You can't care more about your clients than they care about themselves. And that has definitely been another area that just in the last year or two, I've really had to work on because, that level of caring about your clients also means that sometimes you take on too much or you take on too much of their success, and that can become really stressful.
Stressful for you.
And yeah, very hard for me. And so I've had to learn a lot more about self-care in the last couple of years and, just learning to turn it off. And I've always been good about exercise and those kinds of things and personal pursuits and hobbies, but I've really tried to lean into that the last few years.
Great.
Yeah.
So Raquel, how did you tell us about your biggest client? Not their name, but just tell us about your biggest. How did you get your biggest client?
Yeah, there's a couple of them I can think of. One of them found me online early on in my firm. They were one of my probably first 20 clients, and they found me online. They started out just doing planning with me. And then over the years, I helped them with managing money outside. And then eventually they moved all their money to me. And they've been a great client and a lot of fun. They have, some unique anxiety and worries about their money, but they're just really wonderful people. Another one came to me from another advisor who'd retired and gotten out of the business. So another great group of clients. Yeah.
Very nice. So what other kind of marketing do you do besides referral marketing? You have a seminar?
I don't. Yeah. I don't do anything like that. It's funny because I'm actually in the process of revamping my marketing right now. And I've always had people manage social media for me. And so that has been one thing. I've always had a really great website. I've had people who, will post to Facebook, believe it or not, is a huge one for me because I am a mom of the right age. And so I have a lot of people on Facebook and a lot of friends that way. And so I've gotten quite a bit of interest in new clients through Facebook. I do some LinkedIn, although a lot of times my clients don't always work. So if they don't work, they may or may not be on LinkedIn, but I think LinkedIn has grown over the few years. So yeah. But I am in the process right now of trying to figure that out. I'd love to be doing more video blogging and writing blogs. Of course, as your practice gets bigger and gets fuller, it's harder to find time to do those kinds of things. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So you said you started at, was it Merrill Lynch? You were on the call
center? Originally. Yeah, I worked for a call center for Merrill Lynch.
And then, so now you've had your own firm for about 9, almost 10 years. Do you have any folks you would consider to be mentors that you learned from along the way?
Okay. There used to be a guy, his name is Jim Williams. I don't know if the listeners of you are. Hi, Jim. He's retired now. But he had a firm in downtown Denver, and I got to know him when I was an employee at another firm, and I would just see him at conferences and NAPA study groups and things like that. And he did a lot to shepherd me through. He introduced me to this group called Nasruddin once upon a time, and they've been a great group of people, really focused on sort of that behavioral finance before behavioral finance was a thing and financial life coaching. And he just always ran a really good practice. I could always tell ethics and integrity were really important. And that's something that to me is just, you have to have ethics, you have to have integrity, and that shines through. So he was a big mentor to me, and I still talk to him on occasion.
Nice. And he's still in the industry?
He's retired now, so but he still does certain things. I'm in a study group that he shows up to every so often and things like that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Anybody else or just primarily him?
I would say primarily him. The owner of my last firm, Myra Selzer, she had a great firm, and she definitely taught me, so much about how to run a firm and, how to work with clients, especially at a very high level. And she's been great. And we still get together and talk from time to time too. I can't say enough. If you're looking at leaving a firm, trying not to burn bridges, I think it's so important because your old firms and they can do so much to help you. And
sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's different than the 80s strategy of need a friend.
No kidding. Yeah.
So Wall Street and financial advisory has changed a lot. It's not just buying stocks and bonds, it's advising people. So that's great. You're a great testament to that. Well, good. So, if you think about it, I know you're not a self-promoter. You don't like to be but
No.
you're sitting here on the show, and about 300 financial advisors will see this in the near term, and maybe 1,000 or two over the next couple of years. So
Yeah.
imagine that they're all in one big auditorium right now, and you're
Mhm.
talking. You probably get scared, but
Yes.
what kind of message would you like to tell them, if everybody together, about how to succeed
Yeah.
in the industry, and just any message you'd like to send from your world?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I think the most important thing is to figure out who you are and what's going to motivate you. And there's so many different ways to run a firm. There's so many different types of clients to work with, so many different ways of doing this. And I think one of the most important things is just figuring out who you are and how you want it to be and
Mhm.
staying true to that. Again, there are so many of these kind of podcasts and things like that, and you can hear so many great examples of other people. And it's really easy to constantly be trying, like, oh, they're doing this, I've got to do this. Oh, this other person's doing that, I've got to do that. And I think the most important thing is to turn it all off and just really stay true to who you are and what's going to work for you. Because again, that's part of that integrity piece. And that shows through with clients. And they know that, you're either showing up as your authentic self or you're not. And I think that is just such an important piece.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, good. Any other thoughts for us today before we end our discussion?
No, I just want to thank you for, allowing me to be a participant in this. It's been a lot of fun. It's been nice to get to know you.
Yeah, same here. And it's been a lot of fun, and we learn from each other, and we're also trying to help train the new cohort of advisors that don't get as much
Mhm.
training as the old days, it seems.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you're great. You're a great mentor to those out there, people you may not even know at this point. So,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
all right. Well, congratulations on your success, Raquel, and thanks for being with us on the Financial Advisors Workshop.
Great. Thank you. And again, thanks for including me.
Of course. And thanks everybody for being with us. We will be back again with another wonderful financial advisor who will help us learn how to do this business really well for all the clients and all the great Americans who are building wealth in our great capitalistic and freedom system. And we want to leave it there, everybody. So we'll leave it there for today. This is a Financial Advisors Workshop. Over and out.